Welcome back to another episode of Lake Protectors. I'm your host, Lindsay Canay, and with us today we have Nick Rowell from Warren County Soil and Water. Welcome, Nick.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming today. We appreciate it. So today we're going to be talking about things that are under Lake George. You do a lot of diving. We're going to dive into that. But first, we just want to get to know you a little bit better. So give us some background info.
Yeah, so I did my bachelor's degree at Plattsburgh in environmental science. I minored in GIS, Geographic Information Systems. And then I was lucky enough to graduate in 2009.
Nice.
Which was a very difficult time to find a job right out of school. So I ended up going back to school because it seemed like every interview I went through, they wanted CAD experience, computer-aided drafting and design. So went down to Hudson Valley, was doing my CAD degree. And while I was finishing up that degree, I got a internship with Chazen Companies, Chazen engineering firm. And then I worked with them for about a year while I was finishing up my CAD degree. And the head of the planning department was like, hey, this job just popped up at Warren County Soil and Water. I think you'd be perfect for it. You should apply for it. I'll give you a recommendation. And I was like, anything to get me out of the Albany area and back up, to Warren County, where I grew up most of my life. So landed the job at Warren County. Actually, I was denied the job at first. And then 2 weeks later, I got a call from Jim Lever, my boss, and he's like, hey, do you want the job? Things moved a little quicker. And I was just stunned. I was like, wait a second, I know I just got a denial letter. And people had shifted through the office really quickly. Dave Wick went over to the park commission, and so Bob got hired, then I got hired. And it was really funny. So now I've been there for going on 13 years.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it had been that long. Most of the folks over there, we had Jim on that pod a few weeks ago. He'll be in an episode coming up. But a lot of you guys have been there for quite a long time, which I think is a testament to how nice it is to work there.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun there. Because Bob, who recently semi-retired, he's finishing up a few projects with us. Bob, has been there almost 13 years as well, and is just now retiring. And then we hired on a couple more, which has been just terrific. And then Dean, of course, moved on to Warren County Parks and Rec. So we had some shift over the past couple of years, but
generally keep it in the fam.
Jake, they're in there. They're terrific. So.
Well, that's good. So today we are going to be chatting about what's under Lake George, because you do an amazing thing, which is you go diving all around Lake George. I've never personally dived. I've done some snorkeling, but never done any diving. So let's jump in and talk about that. What is the purpose? When you say you're going to dive in Lake George, what are you doing?
So I guess it depends. It depends on the grant or the project we're working on. So I sent you Freshwater Perspective.
Which we will link in our show notes.
Excellent. Which was a Lake Champlain Basin grant. And we do so much work on the land with stormwater, water quality. We do a lot of trainings. We do the 4-hour erosion and sediment control training for all the contractors. So we talk about all this water quality and stormwater work we do on the land and how it affects water quality in the lake.
Everything on land somehow has an effect on lakes, streams.
And so when I started diving with Bob about 12 years ago, doing plant surveys, the first plant survey we ever did was on Scroon Lake. Did you have any diving experience before jumping into that as soil and water? I did not.
So you just showed up at work one day and they said, get your wetsuit and go jump in Scroon Lake?
So Bob had tons of diving experience. He's done plant surveys his entire life. And he needed somebody to dive with to do a plant survey. You always dive with a buddy. And so I was like, I would love to learn how to dive. So I wrote a scholarship, got the scholarship, went and got certified. And then that year I was diving with Bob doing plant surveys. No clue what I was really doing, but Bob taught me the whole way. And 12 years later,
I'm sure you learn pretty quickly, when you're starting, even from the equipment, everything, how to buddy up, whatnot.
And the hardest part is underwater, you can't really talk that well. You can actually talk a little bit.
Wait, did they have... Is there a radio system?
There are radio systems, but we just kind of mumble to each other, through our regulator. And eventually after...
Like baseball codes, things like that?
After 12 years, it's amazing. Bob and I have our own language down there. My wife will go down with us every so often, just like recreationally. She's like, I don't know what you guys are talking about down there, And I'm like, it's just
doing her own thing.
Yeah, years of doing it. So it kind of depends on the grant, what we're doing. So starting out Skroon Lake, we did a scuba diving plant survey for them 12 years ago. And that was so they could get a permit to hand harvest invasives out of the lake. And then from there, it kind of adjusted over the years. So we did the freshwater perspective documentary, and that was really to show water quality in the water. So we wanted to bring viewers underwater. We wanted to show them the different environments of Lake George. We wanted to show them what invasives look like and kind of how they form a monoculture versus all the, diverse areas of different plants, different sizes, shallow, deep, everything in between. And then, we brought in some water quality aspects, like showing the Delta English Brook, what that looked like. Randy
There's a
took
few
an
around the
awesome
lake.
Shot of that.
How do you do an actual survey? Like, is video integral to that? Because you go, like, are you identifying the plants as you're diving?
Yes.
Okay.
So we look at filming as another form of data. And what ended up happening was I had a GoPro and I just brought it with me.
Okay.
And then I started showing my board, and then people were asking for presentations.
Right.
And then we bought one through the office.
Yep.
And it just kind of ramped up from there. So when we're down there, we have to have a camera that we can kind of attach to us or put in a pocket because we're filling out a dive sheet. And this is just waterproof paper. We list all the plants that we know are in the lake.
And it comes underwater with you.
Yeah. And we put it on a little clipboard, use rubber bands to hold it on, attach a pencil to it.
Yeah.
And then this is more of a qualitative survey. So as we're diving, so we'll snorkel the shallows and we'll dive the deeper parts. And depending on the lake, and water clarity, you can sometimes snorkel a little deeper.
Okay.
And we throw on the gear and go a little deeper and get the rest of the plants to the end of the plant line, the littoral zone. So when we're looking at plants, it's, trace, sparse, moderate, dense.
Okay.
And those are approximate percentages.
Right.
Trace is anything from 0 to 5%, all the way up through dense, which is 40% plus.
Is there a goal number of plants diversity-wise that you're looking for when you go out in the lake to make a determination about water quality?
No. Each lake is slightly different in the number of plants they have, the type of plants they have, the densities they have. Sunnyside is a little kettle lake. Yeah. It's very different from like a Lake George.
Like Sunnyside over in Queensbury. Yeah.
Yep. So we've been in there the past couple of years. Much warmer water.
Yeah. It's quite shallow too.
It is shallow. I think it only gets down to about 30 feet deep at its deepest.
It's just going to bake.
It was 83 degrees at the
particularly
surface.
the summer we've had now. Even Lake George right now, we've got the floating classroom out there and they do temperature readings at different depths. They go all the way down to 90 feet. But the surface level last week was 79 and 80 degrees. So it's really warm very quickly because we've just had these really hot, humid days. So
it doesn't seem to be quitting either. I'm like, all right, I'm ready for that, a couple 75-degree days, and it just keeps going.
I'll never complain about the heat. I don't care for winter so much, so I complain enough then. I like the summer. Yeah, I don't mind it.
This is your summer then.
Yeah. But having it be so much warmer so quickly certainly would lead to issues potentially with plants growing faster. Sure. I'm not quite sure, but I imagine there's some plants that are not used to the lake being 80 degrees before mid-July.
Yeah.
And other species of animals too.
Yeah, you might see plants growing a little earlier than usual based on water temperature.
Yeah.
We've had a good amount of rain this year. So, last year we had a lot of rain. So lakes like Skroon Lake that fluctuate quite a bit.
Yeah.
Skroon Lake, I think on average was 5 feet high almost all year last year. So certain plants that are able to grow at certain depths now have another 5 feet of water on top of them. Oof. So they really struggle to get that light.
Definitely.
So you kind of see that aspect of things.
Right.
This year it seemed like the plants just grew a little faster.
We didn't have a super cold winter either.
No.
And at least in Lake George, there was no ice, and there hasn't been for the last few years.
Right.
So that certainly will have an effect. Okay, so you've got your clipboard. You've got your survey of plants that you're looking for. Do you go in like a zigzag pattern? Like what's the actual, like the process, the setup? Yeah.
Yeah. So now Jake and I will swim the shallows. Depending on the lake, we try to stay, approximately 10 feet apart.
Okay.
Through the shallows. And we'll zigzag a little bit to try to cover as much ground as we can.
Yep.
And then we'll come out a little deeper. And then we'll throw on the gear. And again, in Lake George, it's easy to stay about 10 feet apart without losing each other.
Right.
That's the most important thing, is always keeping each other in sight.
Yep.
When we're diving. Other lakes that are a little darker, like Scroon Lake or Lake Luzerne, we got to stay a little closer. Depending on the time of the year too.
Right.
And then we'll kind of zigzag all the way down to where the plants stop, the end of the littoral zone.
Okay.
And we'll
Which
cover
is
as
at
much
what
ground.
depth?
So it kind of depends. Sunny side is, I think, around 17 feet.
Okay.
Depending on where you're at in Lake George, I think it can go down to some areas almost 30 feet.
Okay.
I know I've seen it, in the mid 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on water clarity and kind of what you're dealing with. Lake Luzerne, it trickles off a little quicker. They have more tannic water, so you lose that light a lot faster in a lake like Lake Luzerne. So it gets a little darker down there.
Yeah, I swim in Lake Luzerne, or I haven't as much this year, but last year I would swim there often. And but right in the beachy area.
Yeah, it's a pretty cold lake. There's a lot of springs that pop out. I
started last year in June, and it felt like a cold plunge. Initially, it was like you just have to commit and run in. And then once you start moving, either your body goes numb or you get out.
Yeah,
Those are your only two options. Yeah. Go numb, do the laps, or get out and go home and get warm, or like crank the heat in the car. So
I do that quite a bit.
Yeah. How many plant surveys have you done in Lake George?
And
is it a multi-year type of, tracking where you do it one year and then you track over the course of several?
Yeah. Again, depending on the grant or who we're working with on the project, will kind of depend on what we're able to do.
Okay.
So we got a grant this year to do mostly for aquatic invasives on Glen Lake and Trout Lake. And Trout Lake is a headwater to Lake George.
Yeah.
So we thought that would be a great area to do, mostly focusing on aquatic invasives.
Yeah.
And then while we're down there, of course, we're going to collect all the data on the natives as well.
You guys are looking for potentially new invasives as well,
yes,
correct?
Absolutely. So we'll sieve through the soils while we're down there. If we hit a sandy area, we'll sieve with our hands and, look for things like Asian clams.
Yep.
Jake in our office is really good with mussels and
identifying them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he has a fisheries background. Mm-hmm. So he kind of really focuses on that area while we're down there. And then we'll carry, along with the plant sheet to take all the natives and invasives down, we'll also carry a bag. So if we see a plant that is odd and we're not sure of, or, a plant we've never seen before, we can collect it, put it in the bag, and go and ID it afterwards.
You must be really good with plant ID on the go to be doing it, like not with the best vision underwater. Did you, what's your background in that? Did you have to do lots of plant ID classes?
It was the school of Bob. Bob did it most of his life. And he would just kind of drill it into me over the years. And you really get used to it. Kind of even seeing it from far, how they grow, how they float, what they look like different times of the year, the color. The color changes quite a bit. What can be difficult is each lake the same plant will grow slightly differently.
Okay.
Where on land, it's a little more consistent.
Yeah.
Not completely, but underwater, it can really.
Is that because of nutrient levels and changes in the water, or just like the chemistry of the water?
Yeah, I'm sure it's a lot of factors.
Yeah.
So, everything from the chemistry of the water, the nutrient levels, the water temperature, the clarity, all kind of playing a part.
Yeah.
And kind of how those plants grow. Even certain areas like at the end of a stream where you get kind of more nutrients coming into the stream.
Yeah.
The plants will be greener,
Right.
they'll be brighter, you'll get kind of cooler waters over there.
Yeah.
So even throughout the lake, you'll see the plants growing slightly differently.
That's cool. But also can make ID tricky.
It can make ID tricky.
Like you see something, you're like, it looks like that, but maybe it's not. So that would be something you might take a sample of.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
And in the beginning of the year, when all the plants are coming up, there's a family of plants that's huge called Potamogetans.
Yep.
And when they come up there and they're small, they're really hard to ID. So we like to get out early, beginning of June, and then we'll do like 30, 60, 90 days throughout summer.
Okay.
And then you could see the different stages of plants. Certain plants grow really early, like curly leaf pondweed starts growing under the ice, and invasive.
Yeah.
So when you see it in June, it's big, it's bright green.
Right. And then it dies off pretty quickly.
It does. By July, you can already see it starting to die off and senesce and get brown and start to fall over.
Now, on a year where there is no ice, is there a chance that something like that typically begins its journey like early spring, would that begin even earlier?
Potentially.
Yeah.
And we've honestly seen it growing a little later. I don't know if it's starting to just kind of adjust.
Maybe it's an adaptation.
Yeah.
Or starting to.
Yeah.
I mean, currently there's only 6 invasives in Lake George, but we know from the boat wash stations, the things that are coming in, like we see water chestnut often.
Yeah.
And there's certainly a lot of threats that are out there close by that maybe just have not established themselves in Lake George yet, but they might be in other very similar lakes or close by lakes.
Yeah. And that's part of the reason why we're out there on a number of these different projects.
And
to look for new invasives too. So we always have in the back of our minds the new ones that are kind of creeping a little closer, starting to, show up in lakes around Warren County.
Yeah.
And so we'll always keep those on the list and keep checking for those.
Yeah. It's been 12 years, I think, since there's been a new invasive in Lake George.
Yeah, was that Asian clam was the last one?
Might have been spiny water
flea.
flea.
Oh, spiny water flea, right.
Which oddly enough, I had always thought spiny water flea was like an August type of, appearance that you would start to see it. And I don't know for sure, but some of our educators out in the floating classroom were sending me photos last week that we didn't find plankton. We don't know. I've got to send them over to the guys up at Darren just to see for sure. But it's a little startling when you go from like so much plankton to just nothing, and you're only catching these other little creatures that unfortunately maybe are this invasive species that is a month ahead of schedule. So, but I think that could be because of the water being as warm as it is.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a lot of things quite, far ahead. So blueberries, I think, we're at least 2 weeks ahead.
They are for sure. I have a nice hardy bunch at my house.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. I garden a lot. So seeing plants ahead of schedule, just lets you know, like, wow. So at first I thought we were more like 3 weeks ahead of schedule. And it seems like we're more around 2 weeks ahead of schedule. Okay. So we had a pretty warm spring.
Yeah.
And then it didn't really cool down too much.
No, it's been pretty warm since the start.
Just nice. We didn't get that late frost like last year.
Yeah, just the late snow. That's what always gets me. That's what always gets me. Okay, so you do the plant survey. What do you do with this data? Like, what is the purpose for it? We talked about the grants. Like, you can get the grants to do these things. Well, what is the purpose of it all? Why are you doing the underwater plant surveys?
Or
I guess some of them. I'm sure there's many different reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. So the new grant we have is really to map a lot of those aquatic invasives, like in Trout Lake.
Okay.
I don't believe there's any known aquatic invasive plants in Trout Lake.
Wow.
So that's, we're going to go out there, monitor, but also we can collect all the data on the native plants as well. And there's an old plant survey on Trout Lake. I'm not sure exactly when it was last done, but you can kind of see the trends in the natives as well.
Continue to keep tabs if there is an invasive.
Right, with a heavy focus on invasives. So if we find invasives in this grant that we just wrote, we'll get densities, we'll get approximate area, we'll take GPS points.
Okay.
So we'll collect a lot of data on it as well as filming it.
Right.
And so that's the goal of the current grant we have. Other ones, there were herbicide applications in Sunnyside and Lake Luzerne. So we're doing follow-up on those lakes. So we did pre-plant surveys, collected as much data as we could, and basically one dive day on those lakes.
Okay.
And then we would do follow-ups. So Lake Sunnyside, this is our third year that we're following up on Lake Sunnyside. Again, mostly monitoring for invasives, but we're also collecting all that native plant data as well. So
see how they're coming about as well after the herbicide application.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, is that the goal? Like from the point of pre-application, then you would do 3 years worth of data collection, or is it 3 years in total?
So I think we're going to shoot for on Lake Sunnyside, potentially 5 years if funding stays available through our office. Yeah. Just to continue to track it. And same with Lake Luzerne. This is year 2 on Lake Luzerne.
Have you found any?
We have, but really tiny Eurasian water milfoil plants.
It used to be very dense. I've kayaked there, swam there a lot, and there were certain spots kayaking where you're just like, this is only milfoil over by the Silver Bridge. So
in Lake Luzerne, we've only found 2 plants, really tiny single stem plants. And same with Lake Sunnyside. I think we've found 2 really tiny single stem Eurasian water milfoil plants, and they were all shallow in Sunnyside. So I'm wondering if it was
reintroduction
or the seed.
Yeah.
Maybe some seed is starting to germinate, really shallow. And Lake Sunnyside's a little higher than usual this year. So maybe that 2 feet of water that it's in is usually at 1 foot or less.
Right.
But yeah, really tiny root ball. So we'll pull those plants, get the whole root wad, stick them in our plant bag, take them with us.
Both of those lakes, I think, are quite popular for kayaking, or at least I know Luzerne is, I imagine Sunnyside is.
Yes.
So it's important to keep all of your equipment clean, including your equipment. Like, do you guys wash, sanitize?
Yes, absolutely.
All of your equipment. And you brought some of it today. So why don't we take a look at some of the equipment you brought that you use for...
So like I said, when we're down there, we've got a lot of stuff on us. So we have to keep our gear tight to our vests.
Yeah.
BCD is what you wear that holds your tank.
Okay, BCD is like your...
It's like the vest kind of that you're wearing.
That hooks around your wetsuit.
Yep, absolutely. So we use a couple different cameras. And again, we look at filming as another piece of data.
Yeah.
So, in a year, 2 years, 5 years, we can look back on that film and say, was that really what we were seeing? What did that plant community kind of look like? So we'll film a lot of the different plants. We'll film the densities. We'll film the invasives. And it's become a huge educational component for us, which has just been terrific. I had no idea it would kind of expand into what it is with presentations and people curious to see what these aquatic communities look like.
I think it's hugely out there of people wanting to know, because the vast majority of people would never like on their own go out and scuba dive in the lake and be able to see that. Like, you might open your eyes underwater or do, goggles, but most people are at a beach.
Yep.
They're not necessarily in these diverse plant communities. And even watching the video that you had, I'm sitting there like, how is it even possible that they can ID these? But I guess with video, you can go back, and if you have the familiarity, but they're all growing together. I mean, I imagine it takes like years to get to that level where you can just, check it off your list underwater.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And like I said, throughout the year, plants grow at different stages, different growth rates. So I'll collect them. If there's one I really don't know, and I'll swing over to Bob's and say, Bob, what are we looking at here? We'll pull out the ID books and we'll ID them as best as possible.
But there's certain things, depending on their growing season, like in August, you're not going to see certain plants, like the curly leaf pondweed.
Right, correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, the plant community really changes throughout the year, which is really interesting.
Just like terrestrial.
Correct.
Like I look at the flowers at my house, and the ones that were beautiful in May, June are like dead and gone. And now my dahlias are going to come up. So
yeah, absolutely.
So, all right. So what is this gear you have here that you brought today?
So this is one of the cameras we use mostly for still photos.
Okay.
This is called a Kraken.
Okay.
And it's actually a housing for a smartphone.
Okay. Any smartphone.
Yep. Any smartphone that'll fit in there.
Airtight. Watertight.
Yep. So you put your phone in there, close it up, pump all the air out. And then as soon as you go underwater, you start to lose light.
Yes.
And you start to lose colors.
Yep.
So in our greener water of fresh water in the Northeast, we have a slight green tinge to it. So we use a magenta filter.
Okay.
And it brings back those natural colors underwater.
Okay.
So we've got a magenta filter on there. And this has been a great piece of equipment for taking still photos. And it's pretty good at getting detail in those photos. So looking at,
depending on your camera, though.
Yes, correct. Okay. I have noticed a huge difference.
You have like an iPhone 4 versus a 14 or whatever the newest one is. Like, yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's some benefits of this type of housing is as your phone camera gets better,
so will that.
So will this.
Okay.
But the other thing, if I was traveling, I probably wouldn't use something like this.
Okay.
So I'm like, do I really want to take my cell phone underwater, when I'm traveling? But here.
That's true. That's a good point.
But then you have all that data, all those photos on your cell phone. So you can shoot them out, send it off.
Airdrop
for some help. Yeah. So it's really nice for that aspect of sharing data, getting the data off your phone.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is the Kraken. It will also take video as well, but pretty basic, just like a normal camera with your right trigger finger to take photos. And then it's just super simple buttons, and it works off an app on your phone.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask next. Like, you have to have a certain app in order for it to all function with this Kraken.
Yeah, and it just Bluetooths to your phone from this housing.
Do you have to have service?
Nope.
Okay.
I usually put it in airplane mode.
Service is like underwater.
No service down there.
Think so. Yeah. I mean, even parts of Lake George as you're going up, it's like there's nothing. But
and that's the hardest part with
Never
GPS.
Thought about that
too. When you're diving and you come across an area where you want to collect some a GPS point, I have to come to the surface and I just have a Garmin watch and I'll take a GPS point that way. Or if our top water person is close by and can come over to us quickly, we'll have our top water person come over and we'll tell them, hey, get right here, take that GPS point. This is how many plants we're seeing. This is the type of invasive. And they can collect a lot of data quickly from the boat, which is nice.
Do you always go out on a boat or do you ever operate offshore?
Both. So Lake Sunnyside is so small, we just walk in and our top water person is in a canoe.
Okay.
Which is great.
Just like follows you around.
Yeah, they follow us around. We have a flag so they always know where we're at. Yeah, and then we come up and we're like, hey, there's, 30 curly leaf pondweed plants here. Which is P. crispus, and get over this area, take a GPS point. They'll collect the number of plants, the type of invasive.
Okay.
And then if we're out on a boat, depending if that boat is anchored or can get to us quickly, if we're in shallow or deep, we'll try to get them over to collect the data for us, or I'll just use my watch.
Okay.
And then just write it. Yeah, I'll write like notes on my sheet. So my plant sheet, where is that thing? So I'll write it on the side. We have a notes down here now.
Just extra additional.
Yeah. At 11:35 GPS point, this is what I found. The number of plants, the type of plant.
Okay.
Densities.
I'm amazed by it. I was never good with plant ID in college, but I was good with memorization. So I could memorize the different characteristics of a plant to pass a test.
Yeah.
But a visual, no. I couldn't do it. So I find this really fascinating that you're able to just swim around and not swim around, dive. Like,
it's one of those things that, if you do it enough, it eventually.
And I guess you are seeing a lot of the same.
Right.
But something like Lake George, that's such a vast lake compared to some of the others. So are you doing like a full lake-wide survey, all 32 miles of it? Or is it specific
No, not
bays?
on Lake George. So when we were out on Lake George, we chose specific areas, a diversity of areas. So some shallow bays, some on the deltas, some in the southern end of the lake, which is more developed.
Yep.
All the way up through the north end of the lake and the narrows.
Yep.
So when we were filming that documentary, it's really neat. So this is a map of where we dove on Lake George.
Yep.
Throughout the lake. So we got to see a little bit of the entire lake, which was awesome.
Cool. Yeah.
And honestly, I learned a lot those 2 summers because Lake George, the diversity in it is incredible, and how deep plants can grow is really neat. And going in some of the islands is just unbelievable what you see in there.
What was your favorite spot?
So I had a couple. I even wrote these down. I figured you were going to ask me.
Of course.
So some neat ones, actually just for snorkeling. Paradise Bay is a pretty popular bay.
Yeah.
But if you go all the way to the back of Paradise Bay, there's all these trees that have kind of fallen in.
Okay.
And the turtles and the fish and the plants that are growing in there are just incredible.
Yeah.
And you feel like you're in another world with all the trees hanging. And
Paradise Bay, always popular.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. I was just in there a couple of years ago for the first time, and I was like, oh, this is a pretty popular bay.
Oh, yes.
But then I swam to the back. I was like, this is a really neat area. My other favorite area was Harbor Island.
I'm not even sure where that is.
I believe it's in the Narrows.
Okay.
And it's this little U-shaped island.
Okay.
You're not allowed to anchor in there, so they dropped us off, and the boat just kind of floated outside. But you're surrounded by an island on 3 sides, and it's just really neat.
I perhaps swam in this bay. I'm not sure. The first time I ever went snorkel, I'm a good swimmer. Like, I've been swimming my whole life. Love to swim. First time I ever went like sampling for milfoil or looking for milfoil on some of the surveys we used to do with the park commission. We were dropped off in this bay where you could not anchor, which is why there's a few, but I could not get the snorkel to suction. So I'm like embarrassed. I'm like, I'm gonna die here. Like, this is it. I'm gonna drown. I'm a strong swimmer. This is the most embarrassing thing. So I'm swimming. I can hardly see, but I'm just like trying to power through it. I'm gonna get through it. And because I couldn't see and the mask was filling with water, I nearly collided with a beaver hut. And then just had this absolute panic. Like, I'm about to get beat up by a bunch of beavers that are mad that I nearly just destroyed their house and they have to rebuild it. So I got it together. I got back to the boat and was like, no, I'm figuring out how to do this because I can't, this can't be my last day. But then once you get it, like, my favorite days spent on the lake swimming and looking for things.
So. And it's fun going from site to site.
I don't know if it was the same place, but it was almost like a horseshoe.
It basically is a horseshoe,
But I wasn't familiar enough at the time, and I think I just maybe tried to block it from my memory, but it remains. It cannot go anywhere.
I never know what you're going to run into out there.
Yeah.
In the northern part of Schroon Lake, there's a bay called Lockwood Bay.
Okay.
And it's almost separated from the lake a little bit.
Okay.
Really shallow water to get in there, a couple feet. Depending on time of year, it could even be less.
Okay.
And it is so tannic in there. I don't think there's a lot of transfer of water between the main part of Schroon Lake and Lockwood.
When you say tannic, do you mean just like not moving water?
Tannic, as in it has tannins in it, so it has a real tea color. So it's really dark.
Really?
Yeah. And it's really dark. And we went in there and we were doing a plant survey, and it was almost like I had to feel the plants before I knew what they were. And then I just bumped into this thing right off my mask, and I was, looking around. There's a big snapping turtle. I was like, oh,
whoa,
geez.
That's insane. Wow.
But they swim away just as quick.
Yeah, it probably was like, what is going on? What is this big creature?
So I was like, all right, we'll get through this as much as we can. It was just so dark down there. It was really hard to see. The plant community was really shallow.
So something like that, does video even help? If it's that hard to see, like, is video going to see better than your eyes?
It works surprisingly well.
Okay.
So a little GoPro.
Yeah. What other equipment did you bring?
We also will carry a GoPro on us. So
like strapped to you?
Yeah. So Jake or I, sometimes I'll take the GoPro. Sometimes Jake will take the Kraken.
Okay.
And we'll swap them back and forth. But the GoPro is unbelievable for video. And it's about as easy as it gets and as compact as it gets.
What's
so we
the
can just
battery
slide
life
it in
on
the
it,
pocket.
though?
They're really good battery life.
Okay.
Easily all day. So,
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And this is our newest GoPro. So again, we have the magenta film on it.
In the waterproof case.
Yep. And the GoPros now are waterproof.
Oh,
But since we're diving and sometimes
to a certain depth or just in general?
I think to a certain depth.
Okay.
And then you get the case on there, which we put the case on mostly for protection.
Yeah.
Because it gets rattled around, drop sometimes.
With all of the equipment that you have, I can't imagine how at least something would not fall.
Right. Oh, yeah. You double strap everything to yourself. Sometimes we'll put floats on them in case we did drop them and we'd see the float a little bit. Yeah. But GoPros are excellent for film. Not so good for photos. But you turn this on and really what you're seeing, the GoPro is really good at capturing that. It almost looks like you're down there.
As you're
swimming. So you can really ID plants from
that
the GoPro. Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty well.
Yeah.
So this is a great little tool to have, and it's just so easy to carry.
So smartphone, GoPro. What else? Do you use anything else for? I mean, technology has come so far. You don't have to carry this massive.
Right. So not at the moment. I would love to upgrade to.
I am picturing you guys you always see those memes of someone who only will do one grocery trip in. Yeah. That's how I'm picturing you guys.
100%.
Just bags on bags of equipment.
That's a great description.
Yeah.
And when Jake first started diving with us, I was like, don't get overwhelmed. I'll give you a camera if you're feeling comfortable down there, but I want you to really be comfortable and learn the plants before anything else. But Jake took off running. So he's like, hey, give me a camera. Yeah. And he's been great. He's picked up on plant ID really quickly.
Jake also works at Soil and Water.
Correct.
Yes. Okay.
So yeah, we're walking in there. And a lot of times we'll have, whoever's on top water, we'll have them change out some gear or we'll get rid of a camera.
Okay.
Or we'll drop off plants because we're dragging a plant bag. You're dragging a flag.
Right.
So you got stuff just strapped all over to you. I just hope.
And are you guys, you're not on a line. When you're out, you're free diving. You're not okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we find the direction we want to go in, and a lot of times we'll follow a contour.
Okay.
To get those plants, and then we'll go a little deeper, follow that contour.
Yeah.
But when you're underwater, it doesn't always work that easily, and contours change both directions.
And boat traffic, and I mean, Lake George is a busy lake.
Yep.
So I imagine you're obviously not doing it on weekends more than likely just because.
Right. Yeah, we try to go out really early in the morning. Doesn't always work. But midweek, boat traffic is down depending on the lake. Some areas of Lake George, we were in some boat traffic. Actually, we were out with Chris Novinsky one day.
Yep.
And he had to actually move the boat, with our dive flag on the boat. To let people know there's divers in the water. Right. And we were really shallow that day. So it's amazing how many people don't know what a dive flag is and the distance.
Or even the orange. I remember going out to do the snorkeling for the milfoil or Asian clam swims, and you'd have the orange thing, but people get so close.
Right. They really do. So it's really important to be
awareness.
Bright. Yeah.
Be bright, have your flag.
And that top water person is really important. So we'll hang a dive flag.
So there's always three, no matter what, always three.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So we always have a top water person. There's always at least two divers together in the water. So yeah, it was fun. I mean, in and around Lake George, learned a lot throughout those years. Some of the bays we were in. So this is the map where we were at. We were in.
We can link this too.
Yep. Oh, yeah, I can send that over.
Okay, perfect.
We were in the south everywhere from Dog Beach, $1 Million Beach area, up through Northwest Bay.
Is there less diversity in the southern end? There's more development, more stormwater. It really
depends on the area you're in. But there is, more development, in and around the bays or the beaches. Obviously, a little more sandy.
Okay.
But really, it just depends on the area you're in, depends on the diversity.
What's your favorite plant? you see underwater? What's your favorite aquatic plant?
My favorite plant, probably one of them is a plant called Zothrella dubia. I don't know the name for it.
Okay.
But it's really bright
you do.
green. Yeah, I don't know the common name for it. Okay. And it's just this really random growing plant that gets really bushy, has long, thin,
native
green leaves. Yeah, native.
Okay.
A really cool plant. I don't know why I like it so much.
Is it found in a lot of the lakes? Is it unique, or you just like it?
No, it's found everywhere. I found it throughout Lake George. We find it all over Sunnyside.
Okay.
That's probably one of my favorites.
Okay.
And I like quite a few of them.
Do you dive in your like personal life, or do you just do it for work?
I do, yes.
You do? What's your favorite place you've ever dived?
So I haven't had many opportunities outside of work. Of course, we always go to Lake George in summer. So many spots in Lake George are fun to dive in. We went to actually Puerto Rico a couple of years ago, but I hurt my shoulder and couldn't dive. And my wife was super bummed because she's a diver too.
Okay.
So this year we're actually going back to Puerto Rico. So hopefully
don't
get some good diving.
Protect the shoulder. Yeah. Don't get hurt beforehand.
Yeah, I'm not moving for at least a month before.
There you go.
But yeah, so we're looking forward to Puerto Rico this year.
What's the coolest thing you've ever seen underwater?
Oh, geez. Coolest thing, the forward was pretty cool in Lake George.
What's that?
So the forward, you can dive down. It's about 50 feet deep. And it's the old supply ships back during the war.
Yes.
They would carry supplies out there.
And they would sink them.
Yes.
Wait, is this the fleet that sunk purposefully or accidentally?
I believe some of it was purposefully.
There's one that was purposefully but turned into an accident because it was so deep.
Right. Yeah, this isn't about 50 feet of water.
Okay.
But you can still see the ribs of the boat down there.
And they're very well preserved because it's so cold, right?
Yes, yep.
Do you know where we've heard rumblings that there is a mysterious underwater submarine in Lake George?
Really?
Can you confirm, deny?
I have yet to see an underwater submarine.
Okay.
You know, always looking for the Loch Ness Monster.
Yes, always.
But no, have not
never seen. Okay. What's the creepiest thing you've ever seen underwater?
Creepiest thing?
Like, has there ever been a moment underwater where you said, today's my last day? I mean, you got hit in the head with a snapping turtle, so that's kind of...
Yep, back end. I've seen a back end of a truck. That was interesting.
In Lake George?
Schroon Lake.
Okay.
I've seen, let's see.
That sounds like a true crime show.
Motors in there that were probably used as an anchor at one point.
Nothing creepy.
Nothing too creepy. You know, like swimming through a really dense area of plants. You know, ran into like a big plastic bag, and that was kind of creepy. Like, what's in there? I don't want to look at it.
Yeah.
But no, nothing too.
Nothing creepy, morbid. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah. And even when you get down there and you're in and among all the plants and you're kind of swimming through them, it's not as creepy as it may seem, maybe from the surface.
I think in general, again, if you don't have familiarity with it, to be underwater submerged, like it's green, it's dark. Yeah. There's a level of...
Maybe more the unknown.
The unknown.
Yeah.
It's the unknown. Yeah. And like what might swim out. Like I've seen big fish that have had me a little nervous before.
Yep. There's some big fish down there.
Like a pike.
Yep.
They are a little...
Yeah, we run into them quite a bit.
Yeah.
Some pretty big snapping turtles.
I did see a snapping turtle snorkeling, and I can't even remember who it was that I was with, but they like touched the back end of the shell and it like swam away. I'm thinking you're brave. Like, what if that snapper turns around? Right, it was big, like, you know, dinner plate, bigger sized. Yep. I will help save them out of the road, but the water is their terrain, and I will respectfully stay away, but love you from afar, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
That type of.
Yeah.
There's map turtles in Lake George.
So I saw a map turtle.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, so I learned that on your video.
Oh, cool.
Which I think I knew, but I'd never seen, so it was cool that you actually had video of it.
They are really, I didn't know what kind of turtle it was at first.
Beautiful.
They are really, really neat.
Yeah. They look like they have a topographic map on their shell.
They do, and they're small.
And they're unique.
Yeah. Yeah, they're
unique
they're
to the
tiny.
area.
They were It was in a more shallow area. I think we were up north a little bit. But yeah, really neat little turtle to see.
Have you ever seen an otter?
Not
like, do any of the mammals come your way? Avoid.
Yeah, not while I was swimming. Oh, well, here's one.
Yeah.
This year on Lake Luzerne, I was swimming over towards the inlet, finishing up an area of snorkeling. We're trying to go a little faster because we were getting towards the end of the day.
Yeah.
And our top water person had to leave. And at the inlet of Lake Luzerne is a big wetland.
Yes.
And so I'm cruising through there, head in the water. I'm in a shallower area. And I hear Jake kind of mumbling something to me. I'm like, what's he mumbling, you know? And I look up and I am face to face with two loons that were very unhappy with me.
Oh.
So I think they were protecting a nest and maybe I was kind of close to the nest. Yeah, they were very unhappy. So I was really intimidated by how big they were.
They're
that
big.
Close.
And those eyes looking at you, when they lock eyes, you better.
Yeah. Oh, I was locked eyes with them.
Yeah.
So I was like slowly swimming away. And I'm like, wait, I got a camera. So I like picked up my camera. Yeah. And I just swam away as quickly and as quietly as I could and just filmed them. But yeah, she was all puffed up
like,
big.
Come closer and you're about to get it.
Yep. And it worked. I was intimidated and I just wanted to get away as quick as possible.
Last year swimming in Luzerne, there was one that would get like quite close when I was swimming. I was quite shocked by it. But
oh yeah. Top dog over there.
Any last minute cool things you've seen underwater that you want to share with us?
I don't think I really wrote anything down too much. No, but we're looking forward to more dives in Lake George. I love getting in Lake George.
So if someone wants to, this will be our last thing. When someone wants to dive, like what's the process to go through to be certified to dive? You have to be certified for a certain depth, right? Or can you just like buy the gear and go?
I guess technically you could buy the gear. No, you always should be certified so you know all the safety.
And there's different certifications for different depths.
Yes, correct. So just the basic certification. I'm PADI certified, but there's a new one that seems to be a little bit more popular. Is I think STI or STI.
Okay.
And you get certified to 60 feet. So you dive down to 60 feet, get certified. Now it's an online course. I took it in person.
Okay.
Some might be either way. So you go through all the coursework and then you do, I think like 4 pool dives.
Okay.
And you do 2 open water dives. And that's when they'll take you down to 60 feet and you learn.
From start to finish, how long could someone go from like, today's the day I want to do this to when they actually get that first certification?
Yeah, I think it took Jake about maybe 2 months start to finish, but he was pretty early. So I bet you could do it in probably a month.
Okay.
If you set it up right.
Get out there and start seeing what's underwater. Yeah. Well, Nick Rowell, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. We appreciate it. And we will link everything we talked about in the show notes and the video, whatnot. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
The Lake Protectors podcast is a production of the Lake George Association. To check out the work that the LGA is doing, follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Lake George Association. You can also visit our website at lakegeorgeassociation.org. This episode was produced by Jacqueline Mignot. If you'd like to hear more, follow us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.